Hello and welcome to another Spark AR tutorial video. In this video we'll be looking at how we can implement the native UI for an Instagram AR filter. So to begin with, I've just started with a blank project and we're going to need to go to Edit, on the project, Edit Properties. We're going to need to go to Capabilities and we're just going to need to enable the native UI control and insert that. And if we click on the drop down here, we're going to be looking today at the picker. So we enable the picker option. And you'll get this message saying that the capability is not currently being used because we haven't got anything in our project yet. So I'm just going to go to Add Asset. And I'm actually just going to import some assets I made earlier. So in Photoshop, I just made some free borders and free shapes. And these will serve as my changeable textures. So I'm just going to drag these into my project, like so. So I should have these 6 materials imported. So now we have all of our textures imported into our project. We're going to add a plane. And this plane we're going to use as our determinant of whether we can change this or not. So I'm going to use this as just an example. And I'm actually just going to position this onto the forehead of the user. So this will automatically add a face tracker and parent it to the head, middle of the head. And this will be what we'll be changing using the native UI. Now this could be applied to any material or any object, as the way we're doing this is we're going to be controlling the materials rather than controlling the textures, so to speak. Okay, so I'm just going to keep this named as plane 0. And while I'm here, I'm also going to create a rectangle because I want the UI for the border. So this rectangle, I'm also going to just change its size and width to be the size of my canvas. I'm just going to make this onto a new layer. And I'm also just going to rename this rectangle rect, just to make it a bit quicker when I'm typing this into JavaScript. So the way that Spark AR works is it takes in JavaScript code, and to do that we need to obviously create a script. So we go to Add Asset, Script, and this will create our script.js file. I'm going to reveal this in my Finder and open this up in text edit for myself, or Notepad, or whatever program you think is most appropriate. That allows you to still save it in a .js format at the end. And this is where we're going to need to type in our values, and we need to make sure that we enter these in exactly the same name conventions that we have within our project. So this is where things can get a little bit complicated. So I will paste down below the entire scripts that I've used in the comment box, in the description box. So don't worry about that. So we're just going to add in our constants. So these will be the things that it pulls up and refers to. So I'm adding a constant to bring in the materials. So this will look for the materials within my project, making sure that the const begins with a lowercase. So again, capitalization of how these letters are done is going to be important. So make sure you keep everything in the right value. And to speed things up, I will probably fast forward this, but like I said, the entire script will be down in the description box below. So I'm now going to start referencing my planes. So I've only got one plane in my scene. If I wanted to have more, I would give each of them a unique identifying name. So my first plane I'm just going to call plane. If I wanted to have a second plane in there, I'll just call it plane 2, and then I'll refer that back to the name that I've given it within the root of the scene. So root find, and it's looking for the plane or object referred to as, in this case, plane 0. And this refers here to this object here. So if this was called something else, I would change the bits between these two sort of brackets to be the name of that object. I'm going to do the same, but I'm going to do this one now for my rectangle, and I'm just going to call this constant rect, because that is essentially the object that I'm trying to refer to. I'm going to go to root find. I want this to find the object called rect, which is my rectangle object in my canvas. And it's now going to be looking for through an index. So this index will be the values that contain multiple values that this index will contain that it's going to refer back to. So here I'm creating a value called items, which is going to be a library of textures, and these textures will be the UI images that we are going to have at the bottom of our native UI object. Textures.get, so we're going to be fetching the texture from within the scene, and the texture we're going to be getting first will be shape underscore 01, and I'm going to do this for the following shapes. So again, this name here would be the name of the texture that we want the UI element to have, and because these native UI element boxes tend to be circles or squares, essentially, so a 1:1 ratio, we need to make sure that our images conform to that to give us the best results. Now it's important that we refer to the number of UI elements, and we keep that the same number as the number of options we're going to have. Because if we have 4 options, but we only have, so we have 4, say we had 4 buttons, but we only had 3 changes, the UI wouldn't show up. So we need to keep the number of UI elements or buttons the same as the number of options the user will have when they're using the effect. I'll just fix that. So that will be our UI controls, or our UI referencing materials. Right now I'm going to be using the materials to actually control the how the object looks on the plane. So to do that, it's going to be a similar thing again. So it's going to be material, and then Materials.get. But this time we're using quotation marks rather than the single sort of line there. So material 0 open. And as you can see, after each option we're given this little comma, so we make sure we've got the next one in the list as a variable option. So again, if you have any issues, it's normally because you're missing one of the punctuation marks that's required for the effect to be detected. So be very careful and double check everything, because normally that 9 times out of 10 that's what your issue will be. So each of these materials here are just going to be called material 0, 2, 1, 2, and etc. These will just be the materials that we're going to create in a second. So if I just quickly head over back to Spark, you notice here I've got no materials in my project. If I just go to add asset and I want to create 3 materials, and I could rename these, and if I rename these would be what I would rename here. So because I've just kept this as material 0, 1, 2, and 3, well 0, 1, 2, I've got material 0, 1, 2. And if I change whatever this name here is, needs to be exactly the same as the material we're trying to cross-reference. Now, because my effect I'm trying to achieve also utilizes the rectangle, I'm going to need to create a second mat index. So I'm just going to copy this and paste this, and I'm going to change the mats name this time to be mats2, because I'm going to have this as a new lookup, and I'm just going to change these to be 3, 4, and 5. And if I go back to here and I just go to and add 3 more materials, there we go. So these will be the materials that we're going to reference to control our UI element. So mats2 is going to be our UI, mats normal is going to be our plane. And again, this will make a lot more sense when the effect is finished. So I need to close off this here, so a little hyphen there. So now I need to get the software to detect our picker. So to do that, we use a constant, and we type in picker equals NativeUI.picker. And this would be how we get the software, so Spark AR, to detect the native UI element. So if this was a slider, this would be native.slider, etc., etc. So you can sort of see what we're doing. And then we're going to configure the picker, so picker.configure, and we're going to use the default configuration. And we're going to make sure that this picker is set to be visible. And making sure that these are all in lowercase. The problem with the text editor I'm using is it does try and capitalize the beginning, which is what I really don't want it to do. So again, just double check everything is in the right case. So selected index, which is going to be this index here, so everything that's contained within index 0. And now we're going to need to apply our materials to our plane and our rectangle objects. So we do this by referencing the plane. So this plane will be referencing back to this constant value here and looking for this object named this here. So whatever this is called here would be what we apply the material to, and then it would look up for that plane by the name up here. So we do configuration.mats because we're going to be looking for the material that we're assigning here, because this is going to be our plane. And we're going to go with values equals a new value, because it's going to be a new change. Dot material. There we go. And I'm going to do the same for my rectangle, except change it to obviously be referencing to rect for the name for my rectangle object. Dot material equals configuration dot mats2, because I'm wanting to look up these materials and then apply them to that object depending on what UI button we press. So when we're doing this, we need to try to keep the UI icon representative of what the effect will be on the change in material, ideally. So now I've done that, I'm just going to give it a quick check to make sure it's all in the right all punctuation marks are in there and it's in the right capitalization. It all looks okay at the moment, so when I've done that I'm just going to press File, Save, to make sure it's saved as a .js. That should now be embedded into here, so if I go to refresh my button, you'll notice that currently nothing is happening. So I'm just going to now assign the textures to each material, so material 0 would be my first shape. So I'm going to change this to be shape 1, material 1 to be shape 2, material 2 to be shape 3, my border material 3 to be border, let's say, black, material 4 to be white, and material 5 we'll say is grey. And now obviously we need to apply these materials to our planes. So plane 0, I'm just going to apply our first material to it, and on rectangle I'm also going to apply my first border material. And I'm just going to also select all these materials and turn alpha test on. Now you'll notice that the UI isn't showing up, so we've obviously done something a little bit incorrect somewhere. So I'm just going to turn off Facebook capabilities and check that the native UI is enabled and the picker is on. So as you can see at the moment, the native UI is not currently showing. So the reason for that could be a variety of things. If you ever get confused, always double check your code. But the reason why we don't have the native UI showing here is actually to do with our textures. So if I select all of my texture files down here and I turn on no compression and then restart my project, and then again just make sure everything is still turned on, so turn my picker on, you should now see that my UI element is now appearing and I can now toggle between these three shapes. Now one thing I am noticing is that my border isn't changing, so that means there's probably something wrong within the script to do with that. So I'm just going to just check that for a second. So there is quite a bit of troubleshooting you have to do with this. And I can see straight away what the issue is. I just need to change this from material to material 2. And save that. And now when I change between these three options, the border will change and so will the shape. These materials here, I can change them to be flat so don't get any impact from the lighting in our scene. And this is essentially now, if I was to deploy this onto Instagram, this would now work and I'd be able to change what image is shown and by controlling the materials. We'll be looking at native UI again in future videos, and I hope that this will help. And like I said, the entire code that I've used will be down in the description below. And this entire project will be available via my Patreon page, which will also be linked in the description. So I've been Stephen Fisher. I hope this has been of some use to you. Remember to hit that like and subscribe, and I'll see you again soon.